welcome Chris. Chris, thank you so much for joining Tales from the Trails. If you don't mind introducing yourself to our audience.
Sure thing, and thanks for having me. Great to be here. My name is Chris Bruzzi, and I work at Hubbl Diagnostics.
Awesome. So part of our thesis is that every business, every organization we work with, and really every business in existence has some purpose and some mission that it's delivering to humanity. So tell us about that. What is Hubble's mission?
Yeah, so our mission is actually to uplift the entire ecosystem out there, enable all the admins, architects, and businesses to get ahead of their growing cloud complexity. It's a much different story now than it was 15 years ago when I got started, where everything was a net new implementation and everything was really easy to build. Now we're working around a ton of complexity that may be there from your own company, but maybe partners that are working with you. Having to deal with that complexity buildup, that technical debt, there needs to be some way to help folks. And that's where Hubbl Diagnostics comes into the play.
I love that. I love that so much. And we're in the Salesforce ecosystem. So this podcast is a little different than some because I often talk to businesses that are serving customers in any different kind of industry, automotive, but maybe they run their business on Salesforce. But you and I exist almost entirely inside this Salesforce ecosystem. So we understand how complicated and interconnected the ecosystem is. And I love that you said uplift the entire ecosystem, because we are really all working together to make this thing successful for the companies trying to run their businesses on Salesforce.
Yeah, that's one thing I think has been really unique about this ecosystem is that, yes, as a customer of Salesforce, you're getting great technology, but it's not always easy to know the best way to implement. There's so many different ways to implement things. But that community that's out there, they are there very much to help each other, even when it seems like they might be competitors, but the community is thriving and sharing solutions and ideas and creative ways to tackle problems. And it's been really exciting to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And I love that you have a very specific pain point that is different than, as you mentioned, a lot of other angles. So you mentioned it's almost the opposite end of the spectrum from implementations, because when you're doing an implementation, you have a clean slate. And there's a lot of companies, a lot of service providers out there that provide implementations like us. But after the implementation, you mentioned that years ago, if everything was a clean slate, that was one scenario. But now we're in a scenario. So tell us, like, how does the 5 years, 10 years post-implementation or 2 years post-implementation look different than day one?
Yeah, so think about maybe like building a house. When you have a nice clean field, you can build that house, you know exactly what you want, you can architect it, build it, and everything's great. But then you want a pool. Oh man, we don't have room for that over here. We're going to need to shift it over here, and we have to work around what you have. And you want an addition too? Okay, let's keep that in mind. So it just adds complexity to the planning process. And if you don't do that, what happens is you could end up building, let's say, a Frankenstein type of a solution where, yeah, every decision along the way made sense. But when you take a step back and look at what you've built over the years, it could be really complicated. And that has an impact on the business, where a business wants to be able to come to their Salesforce team and say, hey, I got this great new idea, this priority that I want to put out there, and it's going to make us revenue as soon as we get it out there. Can you go do this next week? And when you have to say, actually, there's a lot of prerequisite work. We have to clean this up, remove this, then put this in. There's an impact on when that business can realize the results. Trying to keep that clean along the way is a really important thing to do for that purpose.
I love that. I like the analogy also. I think architecture and building construction is often a good analogy for implementing systems like Salesforce into an organization. And when you were talking about that, I had a sort of memory that I think is similar to what you're describing. So I've walked into houses before that maybe they're 20 years old, and you have these weird questions like, why are there 3 breaker boxes like on different sides of the house? Like, why is there a bathroom all by itself? And like you said, in the moment, each one of those decisions made sense. But when you step into it, it doesn't. And just one more quick thing. My mom recently put in a swimming pool. The builders did not have all the information, and they cut an electric line. And so you can imagine the chaos. Like 6 houses down the street all went out. And I think that's a real world scenario where, had they had all the proper schematics and understanding of what had been done before, they probably could have saved some people some frustration.
But that exactly applies to the Salesforce world. So let's say you are like a new admin that's taking a new job, you're walking into a company, org's been there 5, 10 years,
Yeah.
and you think you know the best way to do it. And if you don't look, you do this and you realize, oh, I have to go redo all this stuff. So getting that visibility, super important to help prepare you for that project.
Yeah. You add some small thing, and then all of a sudden, everybody's welcome emails stop going out. Your customers aren't getting their follow-up. So I totally understand that. Okay, so moving on, I want to hear a little bit more about the story, because I know you guys at one time were one of the biggest Salesforce service providers. And then how did you go from that to Hubbl? Give me the story, the history there.
Sure. Yeah, I was part of a company called Traction on Demand. They were a Salesforce partner, both for services and building products. And they actually got acquired by Salesforce's professional services team. But they were interested in the talent. They wanted to beef up their professional services team, grow that team. So all of the technical intellectual property was not part of that acquisition.
Okay.
We spun that out into a separate company. And one of those pieces of IP was a predecessor of Hubbl Diagnostics. We were using this at Traction on Demand because these challenges we were talking about,
Right.
think about it from a partner's point of view. They are walking into a customer that might have a solution already. And when the partner's creating their SOW, their statement of work, their estimates, if they're assuming a really clean new org, there's one estimate. But if it's a really complex beast, I should probably add some extra steps to that statement of work.
Right.
And that awareness and that understanding really helps to make sure that you are aligned with your customers. So we were using this in our pre-sales process to identify risks and topics to talk about with our customers. And we were also using it in our managed services, where you want to be proactive about keeping the health of your org up to snuff. And so that all worked really well in that situation. And then when we spun this out, we said, wait a minute, it's not just Traction that could get value from this. Why not bring this to all Salesforce customers so they can keep their orgs healthy along the way?
Let me recap on what you just said. So you guys had a big service company, as you were explaining, and this was a need. Like, you need to be able to understand the org that you're going to work in. You need to be able to understand it in order to even provide a good scope of work for some work that may need to be done. Because the example we were talking about earlier, if you think you can just drop a swimming pool in, but you don't know there's electrical lines under there, then for one, your bid is going to be wrong. But then two, you're going to accidentally cut the power out. So this was a need for your company. But ultimately, you at some point determined that this could be valuable to the entire ecosystem, and you guys could offer it to the ecosystem and provide this kind of value and this insight into the org to the rest of us.
That's right.
So is that about right?
You got it. And I think Salesforce customers, there's not always just one like business stakeholder that knows everything that's going on in this org. And so another challenge is you might have a piece of the puzzle in one person's mind, another person's mind. You keep having to talk to all these people and you can piece it together. But some of that's just based on memory. There's not always great documentation about this too. So back to the electrical lines being cut type of situation, I think it was over here. Actually, we had some turnover and our admin left a couple of years ago. We got a new one. And so it's just hard to piece it all together. This is where technology can always help. And okay, let's just do this objectively and really quickly through automation.
Awesome. I know you guys collect, like, you see a ton of orgs, not just your own org, not just one or two clients' orgs, but you've had the opportunity to do diagnostics and see the schematics and under the hood of a lot of different orgs. So are you utilizing that and leveraging all of that information to provide a bigger picture? Tell me about that.
Yeah, and that's, I think, another area that's really important, because a lot of the times as a company, you are really familiar with how you've used Salesforce, but wouldn't it be great to understand how everybody's used Salesforce to figure out what some of those best practices are and where those patterns are? So our step one of being able to scan all these orgs, we can actually take that, and in aggregate, of course, we share nothing specifically, but in an aggregate, we can help customers understand through objective data what are other folks doing in their orgs. Are you more complex than them, or are you less? And is that appropriate for your business model? And just trying to use that objective information to make better business decisions.
Gotcha.
Our second step is based on that to actually help you decide how to remediate some of those challenges. What if we found a ton of complexity or some security issues in your org, we can actually guide the ecosystem based on some of that data to say, here's what other folks have, similar problems, here's how you can solve those, and empower customers to do that. Customers don't have that skill set internally, that's totally fine. And that's where they work with a great partner like you guys at Banjack, and that's okay too. You figure out what makes sense for your own organization. But the real ultimate goal of where we're going with this is predictive intelligence using machine learning. So basically, what if I said, everybody in the automotive industry uses Salesforce this way, the ones that are actually successful in growing their businesses, and we could take that pattern and help a customer make decisions on what should I do next? Should I go install this package? Am I not like fully utilizing Service Cloud the way that I hope to? How can we help guide them based on what we're seeing out there? And that's where this gets really exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I was just thinking about, as you were talking, why you might want or need to see the patterns of the way other people are doing things. And oftentimes it's like the strengths of a product that create its vulnerabilities. We have the ability to have this meeting over Zoom, but the weakness is we have to deal with a little audio issues, right? If the technology messes up. So I think one of the problems you're solving actually comes from the strength of Salesforce empowering creativity. And what you have is organizations where people have solved problems sometimes in very unique ways, right? So sometimes you'll go into an org and maybe they've solved problems in the past, but it doesn't meet the patterns of other industry standards. And if you want to build on that, it is very helpful to understand what other orgs that have solved these same problems have done before.
Yeah, and you hit it though. We're at a super exciting time because before, a lot of these were custom solutions that had to be built. And it's very hard to compare custom solutions. The old application servers and web servers of the past, but Salesforce has a template. Here's how to run your sales process. Here's how to run service. So there are very standard solutions that hundreds and thousands of customers are using. And so it's easy now to compare across them. And then with the custom solutions and the power of AI, machine learning, even if you did name things a little bit differently, we can actually see there's some patterns here. Yeah, you've tried to build something that actually is a standard product. Maybe we suggest you try that out instead because you get the advantage of the innovation getting pumped into it from Salesforce's behemoth R&D budget instead of you build that yourself. So it's really interesting.
Totally. And this is a lesson that I've had to learn personally over the last 20 years as a technologist, because years ago, it's immature state, I would default to creativity, right? I want to be creative. I want to do a custom solution, custom development project for every single thing I do. And I've come to realize that it's a lot more sustainable and scalable if you default to the existing best practices and you reserve your creative custom solutions for when they're necessary. So that's my current sort of philosophy.
Yeah, I love that.
All right, great. So moving on. So let's say I'm a business. I use your tool. We go in, we use Hubbl, we get diagnostics. Let's say we've been on Salesforce for 10 years. So now we have a clear understanding of what's in our org. And we understand why, when we fix this little thing over here, this other thing breaks. And now we're starting to get a good picture of what have been our challenges and what our challenges are now. What do we do next after that? Do you guys do the work or what happens then?
Yeah, we actually don't do the work. We're trying to help enable folks out there. And first off, I think some folks are a little hesitant to run like a scanner on their org, like, because they're not sure. We're just going to uncover faults of myself. And what I'd say to that is, first off, we're all only human, right?
Yeah.
Except for the bots, actually. The bots are not human, but they're also producing code, right?
Yes.
Now, the great thing about this is we can actually proactively find this before you hit your production environment. And so this is helping you deliver better quality solutions based on an experience set that is way beyond what you could possibly hope to have in a single human being anymore. And that's super powerful. But also the thing to keep in mind is Salesforce is constantly evolving, right? So you might have created a best practice solution today, but a year from now, 2 years from now, Salesforce releases something new. And that's actually a better way to solve this problem. So you want to be able to find where there are opportunities to actually shift or migrate to a newer solution and get better efficiencies or improvement there. So what our tool does is we offer all those suggestions to you as recommendations. And you can use that to empower your own team to go solve those problems yourself, to ensure a level of quality, security, compliance from both your own team, or if you're working with partners, you can see what they're doing too. And progressive partners like yourselves, like you're actually using these types of technologies to actually help objectively explain to your customers that this is the best practice way to do things. And some of our customers will definitely lean in that way, like to use a partner to help them, but they still want to know and feel confident that what they're building is high quality.
And I just wanted to say to customers out there that might be listening that you want to retain the documentation after any analysis that's performed, any service that's provided. That's one of the things I like about you guys is that some service companies may try to retain all that information as a way of creating a dependency. We're like you, we do the opposite. When we do a service, we provide all of the documentation that we create internally, we provide to the customer. You own it. When we finish the service, you get to keep it. You can keep that. You can give it back to us, or you can give it to someone else. So I think that's really helpful. All right. So last part, advice. What do you, let's say we have someone who's considering Salesforce. We'll do this in a couple of different sort of characters, okay? Character one, you have a business. We don't want to make this a competition between other systems, but you've been running on a system. You've decided that it is not right for you anymore because you want to keep everything in one place. You want one system that's capable of handling it. What is your advice going into Salesforce for the first time?
I think what's great about Salesforce is you can get started with something small, maybe one team, and say, let's actually give this hypothesis a try. We think that Salesforce is going to be better for us. It's going to be a single place where we can go. Let's move this one team over and get started. And you can expand from that. And I'd also, maybe this is leading to where your next persona or role is going to be. But the thing that I just love about Salesforce is like you buy these licenses, you're using, let's say, Salesforce to help manage your sales process. But you've got these licenses, why not go build something else on it? Like you're already paying for it. You can start to build some custom apps that you might have on some various systems. Start to migrate those over too. Once you have built that expertise, either internally or with a partner on Salesforce, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get more value out of it for the money that you're already paying for.
I love that. Now that you've talked about that, I want to split this into three personas and see if you agree with me on this. So now you're an executive at a company and you have a few hundred staff. They're using Salesforce, but they're not happy with it. You're not able to get a good sort of productive environment going. What do you do at that point?
Yeah, the first thing is to figure out, why are they not happy with it? Is this because it's slow? And if it's slow, it might just be, hey, maybe you're using some of the legacy automation technologies like workflow and process builder, and it's time to move to the new stuff, flow.
Right.
Or maybe, like we were talking earlier, there's been piecemeal solutions that are interacting in a way that's causing some negative impact on your users, and they have this impression. So getting to the bottom of what are the reasons why they're not happy with Salesforce will be the first step here. And then addressing those. So figuring out, okay, it's performance, then let me actually figure out where those performance problems happen to be. And I know that a lot of the times there's always new business requests coming and you want to keep up with them. But if you don't take a moment to make sure that your org is properly maintained, it's going to take you longer to meet those business requests. So factoring in time or keep your org health positive is really important along the way.
So that flows right into our sort of third persona. What do you do once you've got a grasp on it? Okay, so your Salesforce now works like a finely tuned machine. Nobody is upset with it. It is accomplishing all of the goals that it is designated to accomplish. What do you do next?
Yeah, that's great. I hope that lasts forever, but you got to monitor, right? So you want to monitor, make sure that the health stays up there. And so there's a couple of different things that you're going to want to monitor for. One of them, even if you don't change anything in the system, you might be changing access for people. So there's things like make sure that you're not giving out risky permissions to too many users over time. There's requests that come in, and you might find if you take a step every maybe quarter or 6 months or so to just take a look at your org, make sure that everything is restricted appropriately and you're not excessively putting out permissions that could cause damage to your org or risk of breach, that type of thing. So that's really important to do. But also, like we were talking earlier, Salesforce is always evolving. So you want to monitor your org to make sure that you're staying up to date with the new stuff that's coming from Salesforce. They're great about releasing release notes and videos that talk about all the new features that are coming. So you want to take that all in and decide what is important for your business to stay up to date with.
Awesome. And like you mentioned in the first section, if you've got everything working great, if you can identify another sort of segment of your business that you're not running on Salesforce, you can always sort of increase the scope of what you're doing. And we have a category of clients, but one particular comes to mind that they started with a very narrow segment. And then once they had a handle on that, they take a piece of the business, move it into Salesforce, and sort of month by month now, they're getting their entire operations running smoothly on Salesforce. But to your point, all along that process, you make sure that it doesn't get out of control, that you don't accidentally create some sort of unnecessary complexities, because keeping a handle on it allows you to keep a good control of your organizations. Last thing, and this is a big, thoughtful, just brainstorming. What do you think the next 12 months or the next 24 months of operating on Salesforce is going to look like?
I'm an optimist. So right now I've got a little bit of uncertainty with the economy. So I'm going to say in those 12 months, this is going to bounce back, and people are going to be thinking about, okay, great, you might want to invest more in certain areas, but I don't think it's going to be like it was in the past, where I think things were done inefficiently sometimes just because everything is rolling, that you pump some money into this area. I think folks are going to be wary because of what's happened recently, make sure that we are spending money efficiently. And so what that means is they're going to try to get the biggest bang for their buck out of their investments. And for Salesforce in particular, keeping that org healthy and properly maintained is going to be important, so they don't get back into a situation where things are actually causing a more negative impact to their business. So that's probably the thing that jumps to mind. We'll see how this proves out, obviously, over the next year or so. But
an era of prudent decision making.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I can totally get behind that. And you're going to want to have a closer eye on everything you do, closer eye on your service contracts, and we welcome the scrutiny ourselves. So I love that. I will give you one exception to that, is probably for the people or the organizations who are the early adopters of how are we going to get AI to work in most effectively. And I think that will be a Wild West for some time until we can really nail it down. And that's something we're experimenting with constantly. So that should be fun to see how that plays out.
Yeah. How did I not throw the AI answer into that one when everybody's talking about AI here and there? I guess I wanted to be a little bit different, but I think you're right. What is interesting, and this is going to prove itself out over a little bit of time here, is everybody's talking about AI. What's real and what's not? I think there are some really valid use cases and real technology that is available actually right now, even on the Salesforce platform. And there are a lot of companies talking about the art of the possible, which also super exciting. But some of these challenges may take a little bit longer to prove to be reality. But obviously, every business is thinking about this. And what's great about Salesforce is that there are components built into the platform with Einstein and the new GPT offerings that help a customer jump into this world without having to make a huge investment outside with data scientists. You can actually use features on the platform to get AI value out of your existing Salesforce solution, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. And my recommendation for the majority of businesses who are not led by early adopters is adopt what is mature in the ecosystem. So to your point, Einstein, you can use it on the platform. I think that some people who are going to be early adopters are going to jump on things and be willing to accept the chaos of an immature product. And that's okay. But for the majority of businesses, they are much more in line with what you said at first, which, hey, this is an era of prudent decision-making for us. We're not ready for that. I'm happy to have any discussions with businesses that are looking at those kind of decisions, but love thinking about it. Chris, it's been awesome talking to you. Love the company, love what you guys are doing. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great talking to you.
All right, Chris, have a good day.
All right, see ya.
Bye.